Look at your garden right now. If most of the color you had in May and June is already gone, and large sections of your flower beds have turned mostly green, there is a good chance you planted for spring instead of the whole season. That is one of the most expensive mistakes perennial gardeners make. You buy beautiful plants when the nursery is overflowing with flowers. Enjoy them for a few spectacular weeks, and then spend the rest of summer wondering where all the color went. But a perennial garden does not have to fade when spring is over. The better strategy is to choose plants that flower for an unusually long time, or step in exactly when earlier bloomers begin slowing down. Today, I am going to show you 15 perennials that can help keep an American garden colorful through summer and well into fall. Some can rebloom for months, some bring pollinators into the yard, and others solve problems like shade, wet soil, or summer heat. They also bridge the late-season gap when gardens start looking tired. For each one, I will tell you when it performs, where it grows best, and why it deserves space in your garden. And one thing you should know before you plant it. Bloom times can shift depending on your USDA zone, local weather, and cultivar. So use the timing in this video as a practical guide rather than an exact calendar. Let's start with one of the easiest ways to get more flowers for surprisingly little work. Catmint. If you want a perennial that looks generous without demanding constant attention, catmint is hard to beat. When a mature planting comes into flower, masses of lavender blue blooms create a soft haze over gray-green foliage. Along a walkway or across the front of a border, it can look almost like a low purple cloud. Its real advantage, though, is what happens after the first major bloom. In many gardens, that first flush arrives in late spring. Once the flowers begin looking tired, cut the plant back by roughly 1/3. It may look severe for a few days, but fresh growth follows, and another round of flowers can appear several weeks later. Many popular catmints perform across roughly zones 3 through 8. Give them sun, well-drained soil, and enough room to form their natural spreading mound. They work beautifully along paths, on slopes, and at the front of beds. Bees also find the flowers quickly. The catch is simple. If you want the longest show, do not treat the first bloom as the end of the season. One good cutback can give you weeks of additional color. Echinacea. You may think you already know coneflower, but modern echinacea is very different from the single purple flower many gardeners remember. Cultivars now come in salmon, orange, red, yellow, white, pink, and combinations that can completely change the look of a border. The main flowering season begins in summer and can continue well toward fall, depending on climate and cultivar. Many varieties are hardy across roughly zones 3 through 9, which makes echinacea useful across a huge part of the country. Give it plenty of sun and reasonably well-drained soil. In very hot southern climates, some cultivars may appreciate relief from the harshest afternoon heat. When the flowers fade, leave some seed heads standing. Goldfinches and other birds may use them later, while bees and other pollinators work the flowers during summer. The catch is variety selection. Do not choose a coneflower only because the nursery tag looks beautiful. Cultivars can differ in vigor, disease resistance, heat tolerance, and winter survival. Choose one that fits your climate first, then choose your favorite color. Number 3. Black-Eyed Susan. Some plants become common because they are ordinary. Black-Eyed Susan became common because it works. Those golden yellow flowers with dark centers can brighten a border from across the yard. And few summer perennials are easier to combine with other plants. But gardeners who have grown older, Rudbeckia varieties know the frustration. By midsummer, leaf spotting can make the foliage look tired, while the flowers are still trying to perform. That is why newer selections matter. Varieties such as American Gold Rush were developed with improved disease resistance in mind. While compact forms, such as Little Gold Star, can give you the familiar golden display without taking over a smaller bed. Depending on climate and cultivar, Black-Eyed Susan can flower from summer well into fall. Many forms perform across roughly zones 3 through 9. Mass them along a fence. Mix them into a meadow-style planting, or pair them with purple salvia, echinacea, or ornamental grasses for strong contrast. The flowers also remain useful to pollinators as earlier food sources begin disappearing. The catch is foliage quality. If your old Rudbeckia looks terrible every August, do not assume the whole plant is the problem. A better cultivar may completely change your experience. Number 4. Hardy Geranium. Say geranium, and many Americans picture the bright red or pink plant sold in containers every spring. Hardy Geranium is something completely different. Also called cranesbill, it is a true perennial. And one variety in particular has become famous for an unusually long season. Rozanne. Rozanne produces blue-violet flowers over a loose spreading mound of foliage. Depending on climate, it can begin flowering in late spring and continue through much of summer and into early fall. It generally performs across roughly zones 4 through 8. One reason it is so useful is the way it fills awkward gaps. Let it weave beneath roses, spill over a low wall, soften the edge of a path, or fill the front of a mixed border. It can handle full sun and partial shade, especially in cooler climates. If flowering slows after the first major flush, a light trim can encourage fresh growth. The catch is size. That little nursery pot can spread much wider than you expect. Give Rozanne room to flow. If you squeeze it into a tiny space, you will spend the season fighting the exact habit that makes it beautiful. Number 5. Perennial Salvia. By late summer, many gardens reveal a gap that was almost invisible in spring. The early bloomers are finished. Some summer plants are tiring, and the borders suddenly need stronger color and vertical structure. Perennial Salvia is one of the easiest ways to keep that transition from looking empty. Its upright flower spikes can appear in violet, blue, purple, pink, and deep burgundy, and those saturated colors remain strong under bright summer light. Many perennial salvias perform across approximately zones 4 through 9, although exact hardiness depends on the type. The key to a longer show is deadheading. When the first flower spikes finish, cut them back. Instead of letting the plant put all its energy into seed, fresh growth can develop, followed by another flush of flowers. Gardeners in warmer southern areas should choose varieties that handle heat and humidity well. The catch is that salvia describes a huge group of plants. Know which one you are buying. Match the right type to your climate. Keep up with deadheading, and salvia can carry strong color through a difficult part of the season. If you are already getting ideas for your own yard, subscribe to The Rooted Life. We still have 10 plants ahead, including one for hummingbirds, one for shade, and one that actually prefers the wet spot where many other perennials struggle. Number 6. Penstemon. If hummingbirds visit your property, Penstemon deserves attention. Also known as beardtongue, Penstemon is native to North America, and the diversity inside this group is remarkable. Different species have adapted to dry western slopes, cold northern climates, rocky soils, and many conditions in between. The tubular flowers can appear in red, pink, lavender, purple, and other shades, and that shape is especially attractive to hummingbirds. Instead of planting one isolated penstemon, try a small group. Many types bloom from late spring into summer, with some varieties continuing or producing additional flowers later. Penstemon generally appreciates good drainage, especially species adapted to drier soils. Cold climate gardeners should also resist aggressive fall cleanup. Leaving old stems in place through winter can help protect the crown during freezing weather. Wait until spring for the major pruning. The catch is regional selection. There is no single penstemon that is perfect everywhere. But because the genus evolved across such different landscapes, there is often a species or cultivar suited to conditions much closer to your own. Choose the right one, and you are adding a native plant built to interact with the wildlife already moving through your yard. Number 7. Heuchera. Not every plant needs to be covered in flowers to earn its place in a long-season garden. Heuchera proves that foliage can be just as valuable. Also called coral bells, Heuchera does produce delicate flower stems in white, pink, coral, or red. Hummingbirds may visit them, but the leaves are the real reason gardeners keep planting it. You can find varieties in burgundy, caramel, silver, lime green, dark purple, and combinations that look almost painted. Unlike a flower that disappears after a short bloom, that foliage can provide color through a large part of the growing season. Heuchera is especially useful because it performs where many sun-loving perennials struggle. Part shade, filtered light, woodland edges, or the north side of a structure can all be good locations. Many varieties perform across approximately zones 4 through 9. In cold climates, repeated freezing and thawing can push the crown upward. Firm it back into place in spring and protect the root zone with mulch. The catch is sun exposure. A variety that looks perfect in a cool northern garden may struggle in intense southern afternoon sun. Choose the site based on your climate, and Heuchera gives you dependable color even when nearby plants are not blooming. Number 8. Agastache. Now we reach one of the plants I wish more gardeners knew. Agastache, often sold as hyssop or hummingbird mint, is a serious option if you want bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds moving through your yard. Its timing is especially useful. When many early summer flowers begin slowing down, Agastache can be reaching its best performance. Modern selections produce upright flower spikes in coral, peach, lavender, purple, pink, and deep magenta. In good conditions, flowering can continue from midsummer toward frost. Hardiness varies by cultivar, commonly covering approximately zones 5 through 10. near the colder edge of that range. Some gardeners simply grow less hardy varieties as annuals and enjoy one full season of flowers. But Agastache has one demand you cannot ignore: drainage. It can handle heat and dry conditions impressively once established. What it dislikes is sitting in wet soil, especially through winter. Heavy clay that stays saturated around the crown can kill a plant even when temperatures are technically within its hardiness range. The catch is winter moisture. Gardeners sometimes blame cold when wet soil was the real problem. Give Agastache sun and sharp drainage, and it can become one of the strongest late-season performers in the entire garden. Number 9. Scabiosa. Some plants look so delicate that you assume they must be difficult. Scabiosa is a good example of why appearances can be misleading. Often called pincushion flower, it produces intricate blooms on slender stems that move beautifully in the breeze. Colors can include lavender blue, white, pink, and deep burgundy, depending on the variety. That airy habit works especially well in cottage gardens, naturalistic borders, and cutting gardens. Scabiosa can bloom through a long stretch of summer, and regular deadheading can keep certain varieties producing later. Perennial forms can also tolerate colder climates than their delicate appearance suggests. Butterflies are frequent visitors when the plants are in full flower. There is one thing to watch: seed. Allow every bloom to mature, and some Scabiosa can spread more freely than you expected. That may be perfect in a meadow-style planting, where a little self-seeding makes the garden look increasingly natural. In a tightly controlled border, you may prefer to deadhead consistently. The catch is deciding what you want before the seeds drop. Deadhead for control and more flowers, or leave a few seed heads if you want the plant to wander. Scabiosa looks refined, but it does not have to be fussy. Number 10. Amsonia. If every perennial on this list had to flower continuously for months, Amsonia would not belong here. But a great garden is not built from flowers alone. Amsonia, often called blue star, gives you multiple seasons of interest from one plant. In spring, clusters of star-shaped flowers open in a clear powder blue that is surprisingly uncommon in perennial gardens. Then the blooms fade, but the plant does not disappear. Its narrow foliage stays attractive through summer, creating a soft texture among heavier plants. In fall, the entire plant can turn brilliant golden yellow. So instead of one flower show, you get spring, bloom, summer structure, and autumn color. Many Amsonias perform across roughly zones 3 through 9. If a mature plant becomes loose or floppy, cutting it back modestly after flowering can encourage a denser shape. You can also leave some stems standing through winter rather than clearing everything immediately. The catch is expectation. If your only question is, how many months does it flower? There are better choices. But if the question is, how many months does this plant make my garden better? Amsonia becomes much more impressive. Number 11. Baptisia. Baptisia is another plant that rewards gardeners who think beyond the flower itself, also called false indigo. A mature Baptisia develops into a substantial architectural clump with tall flower spikes above blue-green foliage. Classic forms produce violet-blue flowers, while other varieties offer yellow and white. The main floral display comes in spring into early summer. Afterward, decorative seed pods develop, while the foliage continues, giving the border structure. Many Baptisia are hardy across approximately zones 3 through 9. Once established, the plant becomes impressively drought-tolerant because it develops a deep root system, and that root system creates the most important warning: choose the planting location carefully. A mature Baptisia does not appreciate being moved. This is not the plant to put somewhere temporarily because you have an empty space today. Think ahead, give it room, and plant it where you want it to stay. The catch is patience. Young plants may take time to become the large specimens you see in mature gardens. But once established, Baptisia can become more impressive year after year with surprisingly little maintenance. This is not a plant you replace next season. It is a plant you build around. Number 12. Clematis. So far, most of our plants have been working near ground level. Clematis takes the color upward. Most gardeners know it as a flowering vine on a mailbox, fence, or trellis. But different clematis varieties bloom at different times. Some flower early, others peak during summer, and others bloom later. That creates an opportunity. Choose varieties with staggered bloom periods and grow them on the same structure, and you can stretch flower color across a much larger part of the season. Colors range from purple and burgundy to pink, white, and bicolors. Many commonly grown clematis perform across roughly zones 4 through 9. Use them on a trellis, arbor, fence post, or even allow them to weave through an established shrub. Give the upper growth access to light while keeping the root zone cooler with mulch or low-growing companion plants. The catch is pruning. Clematis varieties belong to different pruning groups. Cut the wrong one at the wrong time and you may remove the stems carrying your next flowers. Know what you planted, know when it blooms, then prune accordingly. A little homework can turn a small footprint into months of vertical color. Number 13. Crocosmia. If your garden looks tired by late August, Crocosmia can bring back the drama. When mature clumps send up arching stems covered in fiery orange or red flowers, the effect looks like flames moving through the border. And the timing is exactly why this plant matters. By late summer, many spring and early summer perennials have already disappeared visually. Crocosmia steps in when you need something strong. Depending on the variety, flowers can also appear in scarlet, golden yellow, and other warm shades. Many Crocosmia perform across approximately zones 5 through 9, although winter hardiness varies. Gardeners in colder zones, the 5th and the 6th of May, need to protect the corms with a generous layer of mulch after cold weather settles in. That insulation can help them through repeated freezing and thawing. Crocosmia works especially well in front of ornamental grasses, where the arching flowers stand out against softer foliage. Hummingbirds are also strongly attracted to the tubular flowers. The catch is winter survival. Do not assume every variety has identical cold tolerance. If you garden near the northern edge of its range, check the cultivar and protect it appropriately. Do that, and August does not have to feel like the month when your garden gives up. Number 14. Colonie. Now let's talk about a completely different problem: wet soil. Many gardeners have one low spot where water collects. The ground stays damp, and almost every plant they try seems unhappy. The usual reaction is to keep fighting the site. Sometimes the easier answer is to plant something that actually likes the moisture. Colonie, commonly called turtlehead, is a North American native that performs especially well in consistently moist soil. Its hooded flowers, usually in shades of pink and rose, really do resemble a turtle opening its mouth. But the timing is even more useful than the unusual shape. Colonie flowers from late summer into fall, exactly when many earlier perennials are beginning to disappear. It generally performs across approximately zones 3 through 8. Rain gardens, low areas, pond edges, moist part shade borders, and places where the soil rarely dries completely can all be good locations. Bumblebees are especially drawn to the flowers, making a patch of turtlehead surprisingly active in late summer. The catch is simply the opposite of Agastache. Do not put Colonie in the driest, hottest part of your yard. Use it where moisture already exists. Good gardening often means choosing a plant that likes the problem you already have. So which ones should you actually plant? Those are all 15. But knowing 15 plant names is not the same thing as knowing what belongs in your yard. If you are a beginner and want a forgiving perennial with a long flowering season, start with catmint. If hummingbirds are your priority, look closely at Penstemon and Agastache. If you want dependable summer color across a broad range of climates, Echinacea and a disease-resistant Black-Eyed Susan are difficult to argue against. For partial shade and foliage color, Heuchera earns its space. For a damp problem area, try Colonie instead of fighting the moisture. If you want more than flowers, Amsonia gives you spring bloom, summer texture, and fall color. If your garden looks flat because everything is the same height, Vernicastrum can change the entire structure. And if late summer is normally when your yard loses its excitement, Crocosmia and Agastache deserve serious consideration. But here is the most important lesson in this video. You probably do not need all 15. What you need is succession. A garden that stays interesting for 6 months is rarely built from plants that all peak at exactly the same time. One begins in spring, another takes over in early summer, something else reaches its best point in July. Then late-season plants carry the garden through August, September, and into fall. Between those flowering periods, foliage, seed heads, plant structure, pollinator activity, and autumn color keep the landscape from feeling empty. This is where many gardeners get into trouble. Imagine walking into a nursery on a beautiful Saturday in May. Every bench is covered with flowers. So you choose 10 plants because they all look spectacular that day. You go home, plant them together, and for a few weeks your garden looks incredible. But everything you bought was blooming at the same time. So everything also stops blooming at roughly the same time. Then comes another trip to the nursery and another round of spending to fix a garden that was never planned for the full season. A better approach is to ask different questions before you buy. Not just, how beautiful is this plant today? Ask, when does it bloom? How long does it last? Can it rebloom? What does the foliage look like afterward? What happens in fall? And does something else in my garden take over when this one finishes? Most importantly, ask whether the plant actually likes the place where you plan to put it. A sun-loving perennial planted in wet shade is not a bad plant, it is simply in the wrong place. A moisture-loving perennial planted in dry heat is not disappointing you. You are asking it to live in conditions it was never built for. The more you match plants to your conditions and plan for different seasons, the less time and money you spend trying to repair problems later. That is the difference between collecting beautiful plants and building a beautiful garden. And that is what the rooted life is about. Not filling your yard with whatever happened to look good at the nursery this week, but building a landscape that becomes stronger and more rewarding as the seasons move forward. Now I want to hear about your garden. Of these 15 perennials, which one has already proven itself in your yard? And which one are you thinking about planting next? If you know your USDA zone, include it in your comment. A plant that thrives in Michigan may behave very differently in Georgia. So that detail makes your experience much more useful to another gardener. Nursery tags can tell us what should happen. Real gardens tell us what actually happens. If this video helped you think differently about what deserves space in your yard, subscribe to The Rooted Life. We will keep talking about plants worth growing, mistakes worth avoiding, and practical ways to build a landscape that gets better, instead of becoming more frustrating every year. And the next time you are standing in a garden center holding a beautiful perennial, do not ask only, "How good does this look today?" Ask, "What will this plant be doing for my garden 3 months from now?" That one question can completely change the way you build a perennial garden. Because the best garden is not the one that gives you one spectacular weekend in spring. It is the one that keeps giving you a reason to walk outside tomorrow, next month, and next season.